analysis coming to you live on Politics and Business TV Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for joining us at the program for today. I am Bruce Joanna. The headlines. IBAS rejects Assembly's move to probe 6-month spending. First female Prime Minister candidate vows to address gender gap. Details of these stories and more to come shortly after the break. Do stay with us. Tensions are rising in Rivers State as the House of Assembly moves to investigate spending on the former Administrative Vice Admiral Iboketse Ibas, who stepped down on September 17th after the 6-month emergency rule ended. Lawmakers, led by Speaker Martin Amaule, say they want clarity on how funds from the consolidated revenue were used for contracts and other expenses during Ibas's tenure. Reports show the state received over 254 billion naira from March to August 2025, with figures sourced from official statistics and FAC meeting documents. Meanwhile, 2 more councils in Katsina State, Sabua and Dandume, have reached a peace deal with bandits to curb ongoing violence. The agreement made during a meeting in Kaba, Lawa Dungun Mauzu brings the total number of councils with such deals to 9. Local leaders facilitated the ceasefire, with bandits pledging to halt attacks. The initiative aims to restore peace between Hausa and Fulani communities, according to Peace Chairman Dr. Salisu Ladan. Meanwhile, Kaba and Bunu Council in Kogi State. In another development, the federal government has launched a probe into Saturday's explosion at the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria in Kaduna, which killed 2 workers and injured 4. The blast occurred during the disposal of expired explosives, including ammonium nitrate. Security experts Kabir Adamu, speaking to the media, said while sabotage is unlikely, the incident raises serious safety concerns. He confirmed the committee has been set up to investigate. Adamu added that the explosion might have been preventable, noting increased activity at Daikon due to Nigeria's push for local arms production. Well, you're still watching news analysis right here on Politics and Business Television Abuja. Still to come. Global markets mixed after U.S. Federal Reserve's rate cut. Details of this headline and more news content after a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and on Business Matters, markets were mixed on Monday after last week's rally driven by a U.S. rate cut. Tokyo led gains as Japan's central bank pledged a slow sell-off of its ETF holdings, easing investor fears. Talks between President Trump and China's Xi Jinping boosted sentiment, with plans to meet again at next month's APEC summit and discuss key issues like TikTok. India's tech sector dipped after Trump announced a new visa fee, while European markets also slipped. Shanghai, Sydney, and Seoul posted modest gains. And on the foreign scene, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party is gearing up for a leadership contest that could produce the country's first female prime minister. Sane Takeachi, the only woman in the race, pledged to appoint more women to her cabinet, aiming for gender representation comparable to Nordic nations. She also promised to revise immigration policies to promote peaceful coexistence with foreigners. Takeachi is one of 5 candidates vying to replace outgoing Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Fellow frontrunner Shingo Koizumi highlighted public concerns over illegal foreign employment and rising living costs, vowing to prioritize economic relief. Other contenders include Toshimitsu Motegi, who plans a younger, more gender-balanced cabinet, and ministers Yoshimasa Yahashi and Takayuki Kobashi. And for sports news, let's join Able Sunday.
Welcome to P&B Sport News. I'm Abel Sunday. Manchester United won 2-1 at Old Trafford. Chelsea goalkeeper Roberto Johnson was sent off in the 5th minute. United took the lead via Bruno Fernandes, followed by a header from Casemiro. Casemiro then received a red card just before halftime, leaving the playing field. Chelsea pushed back in the second half and grabbed a late goal through Trevoh Chalobah, but it wasn't enough. Now to Arsenal. Arsenal drew 1-1 with Man City at the Emirates. City took an early lead in the 9th minute via Erling Haaland on a counter-attack. Arsenal equalized in stoppage time through Gabriel Martinelli after a long ball from Eberechi Eze. That's all for sport. I'm Abel Sunday.
Welcome back and on to the focus of the day. Today, we spotlight a critical conversation emerging from Accra, Ghana, where the 2025 Goodluck Jonathan Foundation Democracy Dialogue guided some of Africa's most influential voices. Former Presidents Goodluck Jonathan, John Mahama, and Olusegun Obasanjo have issued a stark warning: democracy in Africa is at risk of collapse unless we act now. From electoral fraud to youth exclusion, from press suppression to misgovernance, today we ask, is democracy still working for the African people? And if not, what must be done to restore trust, accountability, and dignity in governance? Well, we'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be speaking with Dr. Mani Ibrahim Ahmed, National Treasurer of the Action Democratic Congress. Stay with us. Welcome back. And speaking on the focus of the day, former President Goodluck Jonathan speaking on leaders who fail to be voted out. Joining us to speak on that topic is Dr. Mani, of the treasurer of the African Democratic Congress. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you
this
for
morning,
having
sir.
me.
So I'll start by asking, what do you make of former President Jonathan's comment about leaders who fail to be voted out?
I think that should be the natural course of things. That should be the trajectory that one will expect every evolving democratic process to follow. The reason why we have election cycles, maybe after 4 years or 5 years, as the case may be, is for the people to assess those leaders based on their track records and their level of performance and decide whether to reward them with an extension of the tenure by re-electing them, or they vote them out because they have concluded that they are not performing as well as they should. So it's supposed to be something that is embedded in our constitutional democracy, the way it is practiced in Nigeria. And it's that the fact that it's there for him to be talking about it, then one can easily deduce that there is a possibility that the people still don't understand how much power and influence they have in deciding as to whether any leader should be given another mandate, be voted in, or be asked to go by substituting them or changing them with candidates who apparently will do better than them. So the call is apt. It's right. We're facing a situation in this country where the second tenure of elected officers is seen as a birthright, and that once they do the first tenure, then they must be given the opportunity either by hook or by crook that they extend into a second tenure, and that will mean 8 years of disaster and lack of performance and lackluster kind of relationship between the electorate and their leaders. So the call is good. People should wake up and understand their duties and their responsibility as voters who have the voting right and the power to decide as to whether to reward leaders who are performing well with the second tenure, or to reward those who are not performing well with a dismissal.
So you mentioned the call being a good call and him stating the obvious. Do you think he was saying this out of patriotism or just simply playing to the gallery?
No, it's certainly, when you reach the level of people like former President Goodluck Jonathan, you occupy an esteemed and a revered position in terms of politics. We consider them as statesmen. They don't make statements. He's a statesman. He cannot make empty statements or play to the gallery. Anything they say is well measured, is calculated, and they know exactly what kind of impact they want to make. I'm not surprised he's making this call because we are experiencing some of the most difficult periods in this country in terms of our economy. It is also some of the most difficult periods for the people generally, because when you look at the statistics available from the Bureau of Statistics, it shows that on average, multidimensional poverty in Nigeria has risen to about 50%, with the lowest being around, I think, 26% in Ondo, and the highest, I think, in Sokoto State of about 93% of the people living in multidimensional poverty. So this is a clear indication that things are not working well. And this is the call, this is where the call comes in. That when you have such a scenario, when you have such uh, kind of difficulty and privation in many spheres of human endeavor. Because when they talk about multidimensional poverty, they are not talking about lack of food or starvation. They're looking at lack of healthcare, lack of education, lack of basic infrastructure, roads, sanitation, and what have you. And so it's a scorecard that shows, a complete and a total failure of the government to turn around the life of the people. And this call now, when you're situated with this, then you can understand what the message is. It's telling Nigerians that they mustn't continue with a bad government, that they have the voting right, they have what it takes to remove this bad government and replace it with the one that will be better. I think that's the message.
You made mention of empty statements, and you also made mention of lack of infrastructure. Why do you think it's difficult for leaders across board in Nigeria to fulfill the promises they made during like campaigns and stuff when they get elected?
Yeah, so sometimes you have to look at what is the track records of these leaders. You have to look at what pedigree they're coming with. You have to look at even their person. What kind of people are they? Are they people centered, or they're transactional, or they're just there for selfish ends to um, satisfy their friends and cronies and things like that. But it it's not a difficult thing to do those projects that will turn around the lives of the people. In doing those projects, you can always get data as to where the gaps are, and then come out with policies that are easily implementable, especially where things have gone very bad. Then there has to be an immediate kind of measure to turn things around. Then after that, you start looking at the medium and the long term. It requires a lot of planning. As a government, you have 4 years, so you have to plan the things you need to do, and also understand that government is also a continuum. For instance, if the past administration has started some projects that will come to fruition in about a year or two, and they've already invested time and money in those projects, then it is imperative that when there is a new government, such projects will continue. This is what we saw in 2015 when the late President Muhammad Buhari took over. Some of the projects, vital infrastructure projects that were started by the Goodluck administration, like the railway project, the roads projects, his government continued those projects, even though they're from a different party and they contested against each other. But he saw wisdom in continuing those projects. So that was like a turning around, because in the past there weren't such things. So one will expect that the present administration will have carried on from where the former administration has stopped. It will have been easier for them to carry on, really, because they're from the same party, the same ideology, and so on and so on and so forth. So where that doesn't happen, then you see new projects being initiated, costing maybe hundreds of billions or even trillions, where there are abandoned, projects that the government has not completed, which will have maybe direct impact on the lives of the people. This government is somehow being accused of maybe sectionalism, as in having more projects in a particular section of the country than in other sections of the country. So those are the things. It will mean that those sections of the country where the government prioritized, the people may have a kind of a lease of life. But in those other sections of the country where there is this perceived marginalization. It will mean that the people will not have this ease of life, and then the complaints and so on will come in. So what we truly need is patriots in government, people who are nationalistic in their thoughts, people who see themselves as Nigerians first before they see themselves as belonging to any other section of Nigeria, people who have transcended beyond ethnic or religious or other regional and other primordial kind of considerations. Those are the leaders we need in this country. People who will see the plight of a farmer in Karandamoda and feel his pain the same way that he will feel the pains of a fisherman in Georgetown, in Cross River State, or somebody at Badagry, or even in Unguru in Borno State. So this is what we need. And then there are certain things that are basic, people must be able to have, access to functional education. The schools must function very well. We must educate our teeming youths, even if for nothing, to take them off the streets and to guarantee that they don't become bandits and rebels in the future. We must be able to provide healthcare for our people. We must be able to make at least primary healthcare universal, in the sense that people can go to hospital and get treatment for malaria, treatment for cholera, treatment for diarrhea, treatment for typhoid fever without spending so much money. We must be able to, at all levels, take care of pregnant women and young children. It is when we start putting effort in these areas, not in construction of roads that leads to nowhere, that you can now start seeing the impacts of government in the lives of the people. It may take some time to get those things to come to fruition, and you start seeing the effect, but it's worthwhile. That is what government should be. But most importantly, too, government should be able to provide security for the people. As a matter of fact, the direction principles of the Nigerian Constitution, as a chapter 2 of our Constitution, is very clear that the primary objective of governance and the duties of government is to provide security for the people and take care of their welfare. So if you take care of their welfare and you don't provide security, then the whole system will be messed up. And this is generally the situation in most parts of Nigeria. In the southeast, there's a lot of insecurity. In the northeast, in the north central, in the northwest, people cannot go to farm, children cannot go to school. It's such a messed up situation we're faced with in Nigeria. So one will expect that government will be a bit more sensitive to the plight of the people. Government should be able to do more. And why I'm saying governments here, I'm not saying that it's all the responsibilities of the federal government, because no, I mean, it cut across the federal government, state governments, and local governments. Some of these issues we mentioned, like education and healthcare, they're in the concurrent list. It means there are aspects of healthcare that needs to be taken care of by the federal government, maybe tertiary healthcare. Aspects of maybe secondary healthcare should be taken care of by the state governments, and then primary healthcare, which generally should be preventive, can be taken care of by the local governments. So we're having a failure at all levels. It's not necessarily restricted to maybe only the federal government, and it's such an unfortunate thing that the people of this country will have to go through so much pain and misery for electing a government in the first place.
Okay. So I made mention of the impact of the government on the lives of the people, and we needing patriotic leaders and leaders that are nation-centered, not just party-centered. So as the national treasurer of the ADC, do you think your party is a better alternative?
Yes. So for you to understand whether we are an alternative in the first place or a better alternative, you have to understand things from where we're coming from. How did we get here? A couple of months ago, it was becoming more and more evident that Nigeria was heading towards a one-party state. This is because of the levels of endorsement of the president by people across party lines. It's not only people from APC that were endorsing the president for another term, but also people from the main opposition party, which is the PDP. So what does that tell you? That it's likely that he will be a sole candidate in the next elections. But this is on one side. On the other side is that within the last 2 years, we have seen the major opposition parties in Nigeria going into turmoil. There were lots of fracas and internal wranglings, which has to a very large extent decimated these parties. Strong parties like PDP are nowhere to be found, and they're just a shadow of what they used to be, and cannot call any shots any longer. We're not surprised if at the end of the day PDP decides to say that the president is also their candidate, because that's what things are tending. So it is with this scenario in place that um, opposition politicians in Nigeria thought about the need to have another platform, not the PDP, not the Labour Party that has been decimated, not the Social Democratic Party that has been dismantled, and not the Labour Party that is crisis ridden with two separate leaderships, as the case may be. So that led to the coalition that come together and under the African Democratic Congress to present Nigerians with an alternative, to present what should actually be an opposition party, a party that looks at what the government is doing and make criticisms happen in 2027.
So, you mentioned people accepting the emergence of the party. What are the chances of the African Democratic Congress in the 2027 elections?
The chances are bright. I think the last poll conducted shows that the president and the ruling party have 85% disapproval rating in Nigeria. And we will ride on that. A lot of people are not happy, and that is why you have such a very high disapproval rating based on the polls conducted. But most importantly, what ADC is trying to do as a matter of strategy, there's no problem if we talk about it here, is to get the demography that should be calling the shots to start calling the shots. About 80% of the registered voters in this country are below the ages of 40. We want to deliberately target young people within this age bracket and encourage them to see the need to participate actively in the political process, to register if they have not registered, and then go out to vote. One of the problems we're having in this country is voter apathy, where you have maybe less than 20% of the registered voters coming out to vote to decide who govern, whether the country or the state, as the case may be. Now, in that kind of situation, then we also uh, blame ourselves if things go wrong. What that means is that if we didn't disenfranchise ourselves, if we have used our franchise, and that is our vote, and um, do the right thing, then there's a possibility that the wrong people will not have the opportunity to be in office. So the party is targeting young people, and we have made it a matter of policy. Working committee, the national executive committee, the zonal working and executive committees, the state executive committees, the local government, and the work committees, we deliberately want to have 50% of those in position of leadership in the African Democratic Congress to be people below their leaders of tomorrow. No, that tomorrow may never come. So if we bring them to the table and to participate in the leadership discussions and decisions in the party, and be able to communicate such messages that will resonate with people who are within, their spheres of influence, their age brackets. We're hopeful that with such a move, we'll be able to have these young people come out en masse, um, participate actively, and also defend their votes from rigging and manipulation in such a way that the verdict that the country will get will be the verdict that the people decided, not something thrown at us, whether we like it or not.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the program, sir. It was good having you in the studio. Well, today's dialogue has made one thing clear. Democracy cannot be taken for granted, and it must be nurtured, protected, and reformed to meet the needs of the people. As former President Obasanjo said, our current model is unsustainable, but with bold reforms, youth engagement, and institutional integrity, there is hope. Let's keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts online on Instagram at P&B.TV.English and TikTok at pnb.tv.English. And for more updates and in-depth analysis, follow Politics and Business Innovation English on YouTube and on Facebook. Connect with us and do subscribe and stay informed. And do remember that democracy only survives when we all show up. Well, that wraps up the program for today, but before we go, the headlines again. IBAS rejects Assembly's move to probe 6 months spending. Chumo Kasina local government signed peace deal with bandits. In Kaduna explosion, and federal government sets up committee to probe Daikon blast. And on the foreign scene, Japan's first female prime minister candidate vows to address gender gap. From me, Willis Joanna Ray, it's bye for now.